recreation
Okay,
of our
it's unmuted, so you're going.
episode.
Go.
Is this going to be a recreation of our first episode? We just kept laughing.
Yeah.
God damn it. Welcome to episode 53 of Cooperators. I'm Augmented Biscuits, and with me always is ChuckingDice.
Hello.
God damn it. We had a pretty rough start because I farted really loud and didn't get that on the mic. We actually, nice seeing you guys again, or hearing you guys, or seeing your comments.
Yeah.
We're back from the dead.
It's been actually 2 weeks exactly, so maybe we can hold this pattern up for
until I get sick again.
Until you get sick again, yes.
Yeah. We got a lot going on, actually. Well, I have a lot going on. ChuckingDice, do you have a lot going on?
Like right now?
Yeah.
I mean, no, not right. This is the portion of where I don't really have a lot going on except for this. I like to put aside a little bit of time for this to unwind, I guess, with you guys. When I mean you guys, I mean Vic.
Yeah, Vic. We're honestly, this podcast is for Vic.
This is our Vic time.
Yeah, Vic time.
Yeah. Anyways.
Actually, that's nice.
Yeah.
I think we should just call this Vic time.
Okay, welcome to Vic time.
We need to make more time for Vic.
Yeah,
Sorry, Vic. We've been neglecting Vic too much.
We are. And he's pretty down because Toys R Us just got shut down too. So
yeah.
So welcome to the Vic podcast, Cooperators. We're here for Vic.
Actually, our last episode was a
two episodes ago.
2 episodes ago.
Was a Vic podcast.
Vic-centric podcast.
Yeah.
Anyways, we got a lot of show today. We are talking about the Flip Grip Kickstarter I backed for the Nintendo Switch.
Yep.
We also are talking about a Zelda clone that is. I'm surprised they haven't gotten a cease and desist from Nintendo.
You know, I saw the trailer, and you'll see the trailer later on. We'll show it a little bit. But you're right, because I was looking at this like, wow, this looks exactly like Link to the Past, except a little bit more frenetic energy and such.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering why they didn't get in trouble for this one.
It's basically well, we talked about this with Curse of the Moon.
Yeah.
How Curse of the Moon is essentially Castlevania 3,
right?
Like almost carbon copy of it,
right? With the same characters and everything.
So we're kind of wondering how they got away with this one as well, especially since Nintendo's usually notorious about their copyrights.
I mean, they are, but like I guess if you kind of think about it, this kind of stuff has been happening for years. You had like movies like Armageddon, and then Deep Impact will come out, or
Armageddon was a better movie.
Yeah, I mean,
it was a lot more fun
with Morgan Freeman as the president.
Yeah.
Actually, was it Morgan? Yeah, it was Morgan Freeman as the
president.
No,
that was Deep Impact.
That was Deep Impact.
He was the president. Deep
right.
Impact.
Who's?
I don't know, some random white guy in fucking Armageddon.
Remember any of this?
Fuck. Billy Bob Thornton was the president.
In Armageddon.
Actually, was it?
Was he in it?
Yeah, he was in it. He was like the main mission head.
You know what Armageddon had a plus on? It had Aerosmith.
Steve Buscemi.
Yeah. And Aerosmith and Steve Buscemi.
Yeah.
Together. Don't want to close my eyes. Okay. Let's get rid of the cover here and get to it.
We're going to talk about Armageddon, right? And you're going to sing all of Aerosmith?
All of Aerosmith?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, what are we talking about? And then we also have, we're going to talk about Luke Cage.
Yeah.
Which I'm actually, you're almost done with it. I finished it. I actually loved it.
I'm on episode 9 right now, but I'm actually really enjoying it myself.
And
so we just talked about it.
And then we also have Gary. You read a book by Gary Gygax?
Gary Gygax, the guy who created Dungeons and Dragons. I read a book, or I guess listened to the audiobook while coming back and forth in my car, called Empire of Imaginations, and that was written by Michael Whitwer. Really good book where I'm going to talk about a little bit, and I'm going to also kind of transition to a new solo, or actually co-op mode that I created for the game Dungeoneer by Atlas Games. And we'll talk about that later as well. So let's get started. What do you want to start out with?
Let's start off with the Flip Grip. So
okay, let's start with the Flip Grip.
On the last episode, we talked about the Nintendo Switch, right?
Yeah.
I had purchased a Switch. One thing they're doing a lot of releases on the Switch is a lot of releases on the Switch are actually arcade ports, like Neo Geo or Data East arcade ports. They're also releasing a lot of like older games. One of them being Ikaruga. They did a Pac-Man Championship. They also did. They actually released the original Donkey Kong on the Nintendo Switch, and they actually also released.
Did they release that Donkey Kong so that Bill
Mitchell
Mitchell can cheat on it?
Yeah, Yeah, he can cheat on that fucking sack of shit. They also released a few other games. A lot of shoot 'em ups. A lot of like shoot 'em ups like Raiden and I can't even think of anymore.
I don't know, Galaga?
Like 1944. Is it 1944?
1942.
1942. Things like Galaga too, yeah.
Like the World War II 1942? Come on, history.
Yeah. What was I thinking? I fucking blanked.
1942, 1943.
Yeah.
But you're talking the grip of the Switch is different. Yeah, it's like on the side, so you're holding it widescreen.
So the reason why I bring these games up is because a lot of these games actually allow for vertical screen positioning. If you guys remember, with arcade machines, and a lot of the shoot 'em ups had, instead of being horizontal or squares, they actually had vertical long monitors.
Yeah, so it's like taking an old like CRT TV and putting it on its side.
Yeah, on its side, and they would just flip it, and that way you had more real estate for like shoot 'em ups, because you don't want to care. You don't care what's happening on the edge of the screen.
Right.
You just want to be able to see ahead of you. So that kind of presents a problem with the Switch, is there's no really good or comfortable way to hold it vertically.
Yeah, a lot of black space on the side if you just horizontally too.
Yeah, and they usually add in like art or like your score or whatever on the side, which is kind of lame. It's kind of wasted space. So this company, the name of the company eludes me.
It was like actually Retro something around.
I actually have their email, their backer email now. Fangamer.
That's it.
Fangamer. I think the main person who's sending out emails, his name is Jeremy Parrish. He's a collaborator. But the flip grip is being designed by Fangamer. It's a company. They have actually prototyped, and they've been sending regular updates regarding a flip grip. Now, what this flip grip does, it allows you to hold your Switch, the actual Switch tablet, vertically, and then you can snap in your Joy-Cons on the side. That way you can play comfortably and without any kind of issue and kind of awkwardness, games that support vertical mode, which I actually think is really neat. The backing, the bare minimum backing to receive it is about
$42.
I think it's $12.
Right.
Which actually
$12 really?
Yeah, it's $12. Or no, sorry, it's $13, and then $2 for shipping.
Right.
So for $15 you actually are guaranteed a flip grip.
That's actually pretty cheap for a peripheral.
Yeah. They've more than exceeded their goal. They I think actually went double.
Yeah, it
looks like almost triple.
The goal was 42,500, and now they're at 109,345.
Yeah, so they more than doubled their goal.
Yeah.
People are excited for this because a lot of these games, like I said, Ikaruga, I know Punch Out I think is actually one of them.
Punch Out is on one of them.
And a lot of the shoot 'em ups, a lot of people want to play these games in vertical mode. So this is something I backed. I'm actually really interested in this. I'm actually been getting regular email updates regarding the status of the project. But I would suggest anyone who has a Switch, who enjoys these games like Dig Dug and things like that, want to see it vertically, I say check out this Kickstarter. I backed it. I'm guaranteed one. I'm actually really excited for this.
I used to have Dig Dug on my old phone.
I never liked Dig Dug.
I love Dig Dug.
Dig Dug was a fucking dick, blowing people up. I would suggest you guys check this out. And it really, have you actually seen the product they show? It's just like a little square.
Right.
It's not that much bigger than kind of like it's actually not that much bigger than the actual accessory you get the Switch that holds your Joy-Cons that makes it into the controller. The other nice thing about this is that they took into consideration the vents that are on the Switch, so that nothing gets blocked. So a lot of people looked at the prototype and they looked at how the Switch was going to be slid into this, and they were a little worried that the flip grip was going to block some of the air vents from properly distributing the heat from the Switch. They've actually considered that. They've considered a lot of things like making sure that the game port and the headphone jack is still accessible. I believe you can still charge it. Not sure about that. I have to double check. But for the most part, it's just a way to hold your Switch vertically, comfortably. Really looking forward to this. I'm hoping if this takes off, developers actually create games to take advantage of this vertical view.
Right.
I can see something like a. Actually, you know what? Actually, would be really really nice if they did Nintendo DS games. If they did Virtual Console.
Oh yeah,
for
they
DS,
could do that because then
DS.
you cover the 2 screens.
Yeah, if they did Virtual Console DS games for this. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. Obviously, because the Switch has a touchscreen, you can use that as a bottom portion, and the top version can be the actual gameplay.
Right.
So this actually would be nice if they brought this over for 2D or 3DS, any 3DS or regular DS games. I can see this taking off. Another thing too would be visual novels.
Oh yeah.
Actually, no. I guess the normal horizontal view.
Yeah, I mean
would
you
be
can play
just as
that, but
actually, you know what they would use this for too? They've shown also
those dating sims.
Yeah, dating sims, erotic dating sims.
Right.
They have also shown they're gonna do something like this really neat, kind of like getting a few switches together and making it like a virtual game board for Mario Party.
Yeah, I saw that in the trailer.
So that's something looking forward to. But yeah, I would say check this out if you're interested. Like I said, I'm a big fan of the Switch. Go figure. And I decided to back this. I'm actually looking forward. There's a lot of shoot 'em ups that I would like to play vertically. Yeah. Again, Ikaruga's one of them. But yeah, check it out. And next we got a game I picked up. It's an indie title called Blossom Tales, The Sleeping King. Now, we touched upon this in the intro. This is basically Link to the Past.
I mean, like design-wise, the moves are the same. She's doing a swing. I guess that's like a difference. It's a female protagonist, right?
Yeah.
The animation, I like the animation. It's that cool kind of like, pixely animation. Mm-hmm. I always find pixel games are more timeless. Mm-hmm. Obviously, yeah, it's from yesteryear, but it doesn't have an established look where you're getting into that uncanny valley kind of look of like people, how they're portrayed in like modern day video games. Mm-hmm. Sometimes in modern day video games, when they show like a person, they have this sort of odd, like flawless skin look that you're watching, and you're if you're in it, sometimes it'll take you out. But with pixel graphics, they just it's just like a joy to watch.
Yeah,
it's almost like a animation style.
Yeah, I will agree with you on that. The art is actually really really gorgeous. The one thing that really really stands out though is the soundtrack. It is fucking awesome. The music. This is available on Nintendo Switch and also Steam. Like I said, just released. Actually, I'm not sure how long it's been on the Switch for, but I just picked this up. The music is phenomenal. The gameplay is great. You actually would enjoy this because they took a Link to the Past, and you know how in the Legend of Zelda games you find different weapons, different items, things like that to kind of advance. They actually kept the good part, the nice mechanic from the Link Between Worlds, where you get your items, instead of spending like bombs or arrows, you actually have an energy meter. So instead of buying bombs and arrows and always hoping you don't run out, you actually are consuming an energy meter for these things.
So you're like magic points or something like that. Yeah.
So it's actually your magic. Another thing they did that was really great too is they actually have a fast travel system that's really nice. They're just fast travel points. They did a lot of little improvements upon like what you would expect to kind of modernize some of these games, like these Zelda dungeon crawlers. One cool mechanic that they introduced, a nice little twist, is that
Vic's just showing. Oh hi, Vic.
We're
just talking about you.
God damn it, Vic, you're late.
We're also having kind of low output, guys. So if something happens, we can always put this stream up later as well because we're recording it. Should clear up though.
Yeah. One thing they did do, one cool mechanic is when you start the game, it's actually being told. It's a story that's being told by somebody at different points of the game, because somebody is narrating the story to you and you're playing the narration. You have choices. So, for example, one of the earliest example is your grandfather's narrating the story, and he says, then so and so comes across, and because he's telling it to his two grandchildren, one of the child goes, came across pirates. The other one goes, came across like skeleton things.
Right.
And so you get to pick which enemy you want to fight.
Oh, that's kind of cool. It's like it's almost like a Princess Bride aspect to it.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's actually really cool.
Right.
Some of the items are really cool. I just got the boomerang, which is really nice. And I think there's another thing you'll like, ChuckingDice. Zelda games are always usually known for their puzzles.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but they've never been too challenging, correct?
No, I mean the last one I played was Link Between Two Worlds, and it was pretty easy, but I still enjoyed it.
They have really, really cool puzzles in these dungeons. Really cool mechanics. A lot of it has to do with the ones I've run into so far is making sure you turn on all these tiles at once. Like you have to follow a certain path. They also have, hitting switches. The boomerang, I'm sure you guys saw, it curves. So when you move, it moves with you. So kind of like you have to, essentially when you throw your boomerang, you have to move so that it curves in the proper arc. So it hits all these switches. So really, really cool. If you're a fan of Link, the old Legend of Zelda games or Link to the Past, I highly recommend this game. It actually is really, really good. Soundtrack's great. Gameplay wise is great. I've not finished this, but so far I'm having a really good time with this.
Right.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. If you have a Switch or, like I told ChuckingDice, if you have Steam, check it out.
Yeah, it looks like we're having like a lot of buffering issues right now.
You're buffering.
Can you hand me my in that bag right there? I just want to make sure that. Thank you.
Stop downloading so much porn from LimeWire.
Well, I'm wondering if my phone's I don't download porn. I just stream porn now.
It's because you're logged into LimeWire.
Probably.
Probably gonna get a virus from LimeWire. So check it out.
Check it out.
Moving on
before we lose all capability of streaming anything to the internet right now. It's that net neutrality, I tell you.
I know. It's that guy. It's that guy with the punchable face.
Right. So let's move on. We wanted to talk a little bit about this because I haven't finished it myself. So let's not make a lot of spoilers here. Let's just talk a little about the Netflix series Luke Cage season 2. I'm a big fan of Luke Cage. The comic book the one that came back out, the one that came out in like the late 70s, and then later on got changed to Power Man and Iron Fist, Heroes for Hire. This is a follow-up, obviously, to season 1 of Luke Cage. I wasn't the biggest fan of season 1. I thought it was okay. I just felt that it dragged like a lot.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of like slow sequences and stuff and there was some sort of like bizarre choices in narrative and such. They established this villain or the bad guy, Cottonmouth. But then it ended up being, I guess, Black Mariah, I guess. And then they introduced another character named Diamondback. I got kind of confused because, they established these 3 sort of villainous characters, but it was hard to follow who was in charge of what and doing what. It got a bit preachy at times too, and I'm not saying the message they were trying to send wasn't good. It just was really heavy-handed, and I don't know exactly how you kind of present a story like that without being heavy-handed. But that's all in the past. I mean, I made it through. I even caught Defenders because I do enjoy the actor who plays Luke Cage, Michael. Is it Coulter?
Yeah, Michael Coulter.
Yeah, he's great in the role. He looks the part. He's got the physique. He's got the acting chops. I feel that this is a great character. I feel that this is a great character for Netflix, for the Marvel universe essentially. So when season 2 rolled around, I was like, okay, well let me go check it out again. Hopefully maybe it'll move a lot faster. And I was really surprised on how much I actually liked it. I'm only on episode 9 right now. Because some these stories are a bit dark and they kind of they're it's heavy stuff, but at least there's a lot of great action sequences. I love the fight between him and the heavy in this show, Bushmaster, which it's not a porn name, guys. It's It's an actual, his Bushmaster. He originates from, where does he originate from? The
Bushlandia.
Bushlandia.
No, Jamaica.
Jamaica, yeah. And he's part of that gang. The gangsters remind me of the gangsters from Predator 2, which I actually am a big fan of Predator 2.
You know, everyone gives Predator 2 shit, but I think Predator 2 is fucking great.
And, like, you know, I like the character of Big Louie in Predator 2, and I like that scene where Danny Glover and him are in the alleyway, and he, like, turns to him and is like, they say you want to talk to me, policeman. They say, you know, and, like, you know, he's like, well, this guy, where is he from? He's from the other side, man. And, like,
what's
I
great
thought it was a great scene. He's, like, rolling bones and stuff, and I get it. That's a stereotypical scene, but, like, those two actors really made it work and made me feel that I was in that kind of world.
The funny thing with that, though, is they build him up to be like a badass. He knows the Predator, and he just gets killed immediately.
Okay, sorry. Vic asked a question, who is the woman with the robot arm? That's Misty Knight, who in the comic book, she had a robot arm. She had her arm replaced by a robotic arm. Private investigator in the comic book.
I'm glad Vic brought this up because I actually thought Misty Knight, in my opinion, was like the best part of Luke Cage season 2.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that she's because like I was watching Jessica Jones and I couldn't finish Jessica Jones season 2 because she kept on getting self-loathing. We both couldn't finish.
I finished it, but I really had to really push through.
Right.
It. The last, essentially, I think, after 4 episodes of just self-loathing.
Yeah.
It was really tough to push through.
Yeah, and then they show a story arc with Misty Knight here, and she starts out self-loathing. She lost her arm in Defenders, and then, but like, she doesn't become this self-loathing, you know, alcoholic that just has a comment about everything. She actually has a story arc, and she's like trying to change, and she's trying to do stuff. Yeah, and I really dug that story arc that's happening right now because I haven't finished it. I have like 4 or 5 episodes.
I feel like Jessica Jones season 2 was more of a vehicle to get to the point where Trish gets superpowers.
Right.
And to kind of have that conflict
the
between the two.
happens?
Yeah.
Oh, no, she takes that, whatever, that rage, inhaler?
Well, she ends up getting a procedure done by the guy who gave Jessica Jones her powers.
Right.
So she can get powers. And Jessica interrupts it, and they have this huge falling out because Trish has always told Jessica, use your abilities to do good.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica doesn't want to be a hero. She just wants to fucking drink and fucking hate herself. And that's kind of really the big kind of conflict with the two of them in season 2.
I guess that's leading to Patricia becoming Patsy Walker becoming Hellcat.
Yeah. And so, you know, at the end of spoilers for whoever hasn't seen it, she gets the procedure done, but Jessica interrupts it. So you think really nothing came of it, and then at the end, kind of like not end credit, but really just kind of
sort of like a equivalent to a post credit scene.
Yeah, like a post credit scene. Pretty much like the last scene is right. Trish realizes she has these really really great reflexes, right. Like really lightning quick reflexes.
That's the Patsy.
And
walk,
then
the Hellcat.
That's kind of like opens it up for the next season. So see where that goes.
Yeah.
So. But I will agree with you. I think that was really what they kind of tried to set up. But, God, Jessica Jones just dragged. I mean, I kept seeing a lot of people giving Jessica Jones season 2 rave reviews. And you're like, oh, it's the best, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, did we watch the same show? I was like, I don't know if I watched the same show because I thought Jessica Jones season 2 was just a fucking slog to get through.
Right.
I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the pacing or whatever. It was a lot of fucking whining. It was a lot of whining from Jessica.
Right. Quit your whining.
About she didn't want to do this. She was reluctant doing this, but she was still doing this. And I'm like, I feel like that's kind of what Luke Cage has. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what they were introducing with Luke Cage as well. But
he got over it quick.
I don't think he got over it quick. I just think his supporting characters were much more enjoyable than Jessica's.
Well, I really... So the problem... I got up to episode 5 of Jessica Jones, and that's where I sort of quit, is that a lot of that stuff that happened through 1 through 5 could have probably been done in 2 episodes or even 1 episode. Mm-hmm. Whereas when I was watching Luke Cage, I was seeing like him changing as a character. He became like the reason why we have a cover for Heroes for Hire. He became a hero for hire, which was an element from the comic book. And I thought it was really interesting of what he was doing because, yeah, he's a superhero, I guess, with powers of like, you know, unbreakable skin and super strength. But that doesn't quite pay the bills. And that's like an element that's in Marvel Comics that brings like a bit of humanity to the character. Stop whining. I'm a cop, you idiot. Vic doing the Arnold Schwarzenegger kindergarten cop dialogue.
Yeah, it was nice to see them introduce that. Like, how are you making your money?
Yeah.
What exactly are you doing? And it was funny because we were watching this. I actually text ChuckingDice, and we
were watching the same episode at the same time.
Yeah, and I remember I texted you and I told you about that one panel of Luke Cage where he beats up Dr. Doom because Dr. Doom gyps up on was it like it's
$300
like $300 or something. And it's great because Luke Cage goes after Dr. Doom and Varia, right? And he Doom's surprised. He's like, "Why the fuck are you coming after me just for $300?" And he's like, "You got to keep your promise." And he ends up actually getting through Dr. Doom's armor, right? Because he just keeps punching the same spot over and over until.
Or was it the real Dr. Doom though? Because he could have been a Doom bot. I don't know.
I just thought it was a great panel.
No, it's a great story. That's why I always dug the character of Luke Cage, because he's like a blue collar worker, kind of, and represents the everyman. And those are a dime a dozen with I guess Marvel characters in general, because you have Spider-Man, you have Captain America, it's only their secret identity that kind of elevates them more. With Luke Cage, he's more of I guess you could say urban superhero or whatever. Kind of the same vein as Daredevil, but he doesn't have a secret identity, which I think is a kind of the difference between him and a lot of the other superheroes, with the exception of Fantastic Four, who don't have secret identities as well.
I will say though, as much as we kind of complain about Jessica Jones season 2, I am looking forward to 3 because they did kind of do a post interview with her regarding season 2, and she said she hopes, when they return to season 3. They kind of, move Jessica past her self-loathing and actually make her an actual hero.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I want her to change as a character, because I felt that I'm just watching the same Jessica Jones from season 1.
Yeah. The other thing too, and I this is something I actually was looking forward to. Right. I wish she was on more cases, on more investigations. That's actually what I liked about the Defenders, was she was actually investigating something that led to the Bear kind of overall them all getting together.
Right.
But I think honestly it all kind of comes down to preference. I think Jessica Jones is more focused on her and her investigations, and not so much of the supporting cast. Although I do like her supporting characters. Actually, as annoying as Trish is in season 2 sometimes, she is a better character. She's actually a really cool character. I actually like Malcolm a lot. I think Malcolm kind of gets shit on a lot in season 2. But Luke Cage's supporting cast, I think it's just so good.
His supporting cast and his antagonists are all interesting.
Yeah, Misty Knight, I think was my favorite. I really liked Mariah.
Mariah and her extended family.
And Shades was great.
Shades was awesome. I loved Shades.
Shades' arc and his relationship with another character in that show.
Barracuda.
No,
his friend.
Yeah, was it Barrack? No.
Well, that's his comic book name. So.
Comanche.
Comanche.
His relationship with Comanche was great.
Yeah.
And then the villain. I thought the villain was
Bushmaster.
Bushmaster was great. His backstory was good.
Oh yeah. I'm enjoying him.
I honestly think Luke just has better supporting characters.
Yeah, and he has an interesting community. I like the scenes with his father, who is the actor who played. He was in House of Cards. He played the Larry or Lawrence Underwood would go to a barbecue place, and that's the guy who owned the barbecue place. He was really good in that, and he's really good in this. There's a part where Luke Cage is being shot at. There's a little bit of spoiler, but he gets shot at a lot because people can't remember that he has bulletproof skin. And he gets shot at, and the guy trying to run away because obviously the gun, the bullets bounce off of him. And his dad comes up there and starts punches him out. His dad's he's a minister. He's hitting him over the head with a stick or something. Mm-hmm. And Luke Cage is whoa. He's like, it's all right. He's like, he shot at you. It's like, Dad, I got bulletproof skin. It's like, no one shoots at my baby. And I thought that was a great scene.
Yeah. One thing I will say, one criticism I do have is I did not really like the way they kind of abruptly ended the arc of Luke and his anger, and kind of Claire trying to keep him from
the relationship kind of thing.
The relationship, and also her trying to keep him from feeding that anger. This might just be me, but I kind of theorize that maybe the writers didn't want to get too deep into the whole angry black man.
I think you're right, because it'd be like that kind of like the angry black man, I guess, trope is kind of dangerous with like a superhuman person.
Yeah.
I mean,
and also I think they kind of skated a little close to abuse.
Yeah.
Like possible domestic abuse.
Yeah. Because like
I can see what they were trying to do, and it was really like that scene was really tough for me.
Yeah.
Especially when Claire reveals why she...
A little bit of spoilers, guys, if you haven't seen it.
Yeah. When Claire reveals her motivation of her decision to leave, that was rough for me to watch.
Yeah.
And again, I think they did a very good job to kind of really, really not get too far with that. But that's my only really criticism, is I think that was kind of one of those things where they presented it but then kind of left it open-ended. Like, they didn't really make it come to a good conclusion. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, more like closure. There wasn't really much closure with that.
I guess maybe they're saving it for another season.
Yeah.
What I really dig about like Luke Cage, I actually dug this about the first season too. I love the soundtrack.
Soundtrack was great.
Yeah, even his like theme is great.
Mm.
Like that's the only like the theme to both, like, I guess Daredevil and Jessica Jones, and I guess you can even say Iron Fist and Defend. I never really stuck around to listen to them, but I kind of like the theme to Luke Cage. That sort of like mix of like I guess a little bit of hip hop and a little bit of 1970s blaxploitation kind of movies.
Yeah.
And then I love like the needle drop soundtrack that they play throughout the show too.
And they did have some moments too of kind of like fan service. They did have Misty Knight and Jessica Wing teaming up.
Yeah.
And then they also had Danny and...
Which they do in the comic book. They form their own investigation team in the comic book.
The Daughters of the Dragon, right?
Well, I forgot. Yeah, I think... Is that what it's called? Maybe, I don't know.
And then they did have Danny and Luke team up once again, which I actually liked Danny.
Really? I'm dreading to get to that episode.
You know, it's not...
I don't like the actor.
I actually think you're on that episode. You said you were on episode 9?
Yeah, I'm almost... Yeah, I think that's the episode that's...
Okay, I think episode 9 is where he comes out.
Right.
He only sticks around for that one episode, but I feel like Danny is more of a... He's a lot more supportive of Luke, and he's trying to get Luke to kind of like... Right.
Does he stop saying, "I am the immortal Iron Fist"? Because that's the one quote I don't like from him.
I think he might have said... I think he does say it like maybe once or twice, but it's not. Yeah, no.
I am the immortal Iron Fist. Stop saying.
He's a lot more relaxed, and it's funny because I think even Luke acknowledges it and was like, "You're a lot more relaxed and not as." Basically, Luke tells him like, "You're not as much of an annoyance as you were back in the Defenders or whatever."
You're not a weirdo.
Yeah, you're a lot more relaxed, and you're a lot like calmer and like cooler. Their fight scene's cool. I think you'll get a dig out of that.
Yeah. But I love those superhuman fight scenes.
But yeah, I was actually really pleasantly surprised. I was really surprised how much I liked this. I will say, the very last episode is awesome. Okay. I actually think it's like the way they ended this show. You kind of get to the point when you get up to like episode 8 or 9. You can tell they're wrapping things up, and you're like, oh, it's gonna end, and then you get to episode 10. Or actually, I think there's more episodes than 10.
There's 13 episodes.
Okay, so you get up to a certain episode where you think they're wrapping everything up, and you're like, okay, what else? And then you're like, wait, why are there 2 more episodes left?
Right.
Those last 2 episodes, especially the final episode, is great. I mean, it's like you're gonna get annoyed, and then as soon as you watch those 2 episodes, you're like, holy fuck! Like, I'm glad that they added those 2 episodes.
Yeah, I was watching it, and then I took a little break because Glow came out, and I wanted to watch season 2 of Glow, which I loved season 1 of Glow. I'm really digging season 2 of Glow, or Doug, because I watched it all in one day.
I'll watch that this weekend, or I'll watch that.
We'll talk about it next week. But there's an episode in there that they just kind of shoot in the fashion of the old Glow television show, and that's my childhood right there. So I was just like, this is awesome.
Is Mark Mark Maron,
Maron,
still really good in it.
Yes, his even better. Like
even better than season 1.
Oh my god!
I thought he was like the best.
Yeah.
I thought he was like the funniest.
Like I didn't think he could get any better, but he did.
Okay.
Let's move on here.
Moving on. So we highly suggest you watch it.
Right.
If you like Luke Cage season 1, you'll love season 2. But yeah, it's
even if you didn't like season 1, you might actually like season 2.
I want to marry Misty Knight.
I want to marry Mariah. I'm like Shades.
I want to marry Shades.
Yeah, beautiful.
I want to marry Shades.
Yeah, you want to marry Shades?
Yeah. I just want to hang out with Shades and
he'll just kill you.
Just be like Black Mariah and just stroke his face.
Okay.
Right, moving on.
Moving on here. We're gonna move on to a little bit of a book that I listened to through Audible because no one has time to read books anymore. I only have really time to the commute to my work, so I listen to them on Audible. I have an Audible account. Audible is available through Amazon Prime and only just like I really kind of dig Audible right now because it makes car rides more painless, especially in LA when traffic really, 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 really sucks. So I read this book called Empire of Imagination. It's by Michael Whitwer. It's basically the story of Gary Gygax, the creator of Dungeons and Dragons. And I was actually kind of floored to find out how much drama there was in the creation of Dungeons and Dragons. Gary Gygax actually made Dungeons and Dragons, like the actual game, in his 30s. Not like almost his mid to late 30s is when that game became popular. It was in I think 1975 or 74 when the game actually came out. And he created a company called TSR that stands for Tactical Study Rules. Before he made a game called I think it was Chainmail, which was part of this entire basically gaming society, because there wasn't role-playing games until Dungeons and Dragons. Before that, oh shoot, we just lost connection.
The hell, Clyde, you paid?
All right, let me see if okay, I think we're back.
We're back.
Okay, sorry. Oh no, it's going red, it's going yellow. All right, hopefully you guys can hear this. Sorry, we just seem to have lost connection for a second. But it looks like we're back. Just have to stream resumed. The stream is continuing. Okay, it's good. So the entire story is that he was part of this company that created strategic board games, which was the big, it's a big underground thing that a bunch of nerds played back in the day before role-playing games. Most of these games were published by Avalon Hill, which is the publisher of strategic board games back in the day, and I think a version of it's still around. But Gary Gygax wanted to print Dungeons and Dragons, and he was having a hard time finding a publisher because Avalon Hill did not want to publish it because it was just a little bit too obscure, and so he decided to print it himself. And it's a remarkable story of how he thought of these rules, and it's presented really just in a very unusual manner. Each chapter kind of begins with a sort of introduction of the chapter through how a game master or dungeon master would present the character to present a story in a tabletop setting. And then it kind of relates to the theme of that chapter. And it's a really cool book. I suggest you guys go, buy it in Audible, or if you guys, read books and, open them up and turn the pages and stuff like that, go buy it on Amazon, go buy it at a bookstore if those even exist anymore. Just, take a look at it, because that guy actually had a very remarkable just history. And he is the father of role-playing games. He's the father of video game role-playing games, because a lot of the stuff he did influence, game makers. And I'm not just saying games like Final Fantasy and Ultima and all this other stuff. He actually influenced people who created Doom and Wolfenstein. His touch extended there as well, because Carmack Carmack was a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons, and like a lot of the themes in Doom was influenced by a game that he played in his D&D campaign. Unfortunately, so was Daikatana, which was a terrible game.
Don't talk shit about Daikatana, okay? I actually never played Daikatana.
No one did.
You know what's great though? Have you ever heard the story behind Daikatana?
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
Ion Storm?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I read it, and there was one particular passage that kind of like, sorry to hijack this, but just real quick. The reason why that game's such a fucking shit mess is, and this kind of leads back to me gonna say, like, this is why masculinity is like fucking bullshit and toxic, is because the guy who wrote Daikatana, when they interviewed him, he wanted to have a African American protagonist who was basically all about honor and martial arts, and he wanted him to be a really cool like protagonist. And he said some meathead at Ion Storm basically told him, dude, that's gay. And they reduced him to your stereotypical, like,
like white dude.
No, stereotypical like black,
right.
like pretty much like hip hop talking.
Yeah,
it was really funny. But that kind of like summed up why Daikatana was a mess, was because the guy was like, they had so much potential, but basically these guys just wanted to just keep doing the same shit they were doing in like the early 90s.
Right.
Like, just bullshit.
Well, that was the early 90s for you. So like this kind of influenced me to go, getting back to the story here, that after reading the Empire of Imaginations, I wanted to pick up like, the original Dungeons and Dragons book, just to, because I've never actually played OD&D, which stands for Original Dungeons and Dragons. It basically was this white book that was printed in 1974. I've always played like AD&D or up. So I wanted to kind of go back in history and see, what kind of game it was back then. So I picked it up on I think it's RPGDriveThru.com. They print out a lot. You can buy a lot of PDFs of old role-playing games, new role-playing games, independent role-playing games, a lot of stuff. They also have board game drive-thru and comic book drive-thru and all this other stuff. The original Dungeons & Dragons is not that much of an intuitive game to learn from reading its book. In fact, it's very difficult. Also, to add the fact that they say that you also need a copy of Chainmail to actually play this game. I think you don't, because there actually is a section that explains combat in there, but I guess a lot of the combat is derived from this other game called Chainmail, which I didn't actually buy. And I decided not to pick up just because the book's writing is not written very well. Let me just say that. You could probably pick up the basic Dungeons and Dragons set, the follow-up that was like written in like 1979 or 1980 or something like that. I think 78. Which cleans up a lot of the language and also organizes it so that it makes sense. It also includes all the combat rules, so you don't have to buy a copy of Chainmail. It's called the basic Dungeons and Dragons set. You can buy that, or you can buy the one that, the follow-up, the reprint of that revised some of the rules. Or you can just buy, the normal AD&D rule book. It's essentially sort of all the same. So, I was kind of in a D&D mood, but, there was no way I was going to finish, reading this. It was an interesting read in terms of a historical fact, not so much of, wanting to start a campaign and such. There's other games that do that way better and such. So I decided to kind of go through my library of, just board games and stuff and try and find something that was more easy to pick up and learn. I couldn't find really anything that... in terms of their original rule set that was satisfying. I mean, I do have Castle Ravenloft, but it's always a chore to set up that game because there's a lot of miniatures, there's a lot of tiles, there's a lot of cards, there's a lot of counters. It's like a $60 to $70 game, and it feels like a $60 or $70 game. You can't exactly take that to a bar and play with a buddy and drink beer because it's got all these figures and dice and all this other stuff that just kind of takes up space, and you need a huge table to play it. So what I did find was this game called Dungeoneer by Atlas Games, which is a card game where it's a dungeon crawler. You assume a character, and you basically have 3 quests to do, and you're trying to complete these quests before the other player completes their quest. And there's this thing called the Dungeon Lord phase, where you actually get to assume the role of a dungeon master type, role. But basically, it's like, the other players trying to screw you over so you don't complete your quest, and they're going to be doing the same to you when their turn comes up. You basically move around this map, and you acquire glory, which allows you to play more cards that buffs your character, but also you acquire peril, which basically allows other players to play cards against you. So that if you're always moving, you'll gain a lot of, glory to, make your character more powerful, level up and such. But that also increases the danger factor of monsters attacking you or you setting a trap or whatever. You and I actually played this game together with a couple other people. And the problem with this game is that it seems that no one gets anywhere because they're always being screwed over by the player.
Yeah.
And like one of the weird things is that this is a dungeon crawling game, and I don't remember playing, any kind of role-playing game or even video game where you're voyaging to a dungeon in a quest and you're screwing over the other guy, like constantly. So it was very awkward to play this game, in its original form, because when you're doing that all the frickin' time, no one gets anywhere, and like the game just kind of goes nowhere. Like no one wins, no one really loses. I mean, it's like everyone loses kind of thing, and like it's just like a kind of almost interesting study of like of just human beings, of how like if there's a goal in mind, only one person wants to complete it while like screwing over their fellow man or whatever.
I think that's how I felt was like, oh, I'm just trying to get to the end, and other people were like, well,
you're not getting to the end.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how the game's played.
If I wanted to do that, I would just go on online and play a video game online.
Right. And I don't feel like a dungeon crawling game is like that. And I feel that Dungeons and Dragons, when it was first established, it was not like that. Dungeons and Dragons was about cooperation, and there was only one person playing against you, and it was the dungeon master. But I feel that even the dungeon master was there to put your characters in a good story. He wasn't there to like screw you over either. It's not the dungeon, like even it says in the actual original book that the dungeon master is not a player that competes against the players. He's there to move the story along. He's like a director. Like a director doesn't, normally doesn't direct a movie to like stifle the actors.
Unless you're James Cameron.
Yeah, unless you're James Cameron, and make him cry every day. Who's that? Ed Harris. He cried, every day after shooting The Abyss. Like
he would literally sit there and cry.
Yeah, after every shoot of The Abyss, like he shared that in the Q&A when I saw the movie Knight Riders by George Romero. It's the one about the Renaissance festival, kind of the Renaissance festival people, and like they kind of carry themselves exactly like King Arthur. And Ed Harris was like doing the Q&A, and they asked him, "It's like was this the hardest shoot you were ever been on because it was so low budget?" And he was like, "No, the hardest shoot I was ever on was The Abyss." He's like, every day I went home crying, and I'm not lying about that. It just brought me to tears.
That's rough, man. Why would you make Ed Harris cry?
I don't know how you can.
What kind of piece of shit?
First of all, Ed Harris is like he looks like the toughest motherfucker in the world.
What kind of piece of shit you gotta be?
Yeah.
Named James Cameron to make Ed Harris cry? Like, what the fuck, James Cameron?
So basically, you don't want to run your campaign like James Cameron.
It's okay. He's gonna make like fucking 20 Avatar movies. So
yeah, that's not okay.
Well, that's not okay, but hopefully that kind of kills his fucking career. So it's okay. He's got the money for it.
So I was kind of looking at this game and looking at the map tiles that you play and looking at the characters, and I think the potential of this game is great. The only problem is that, like, the only way you can have a cooperative mode is that if one person becomes the Dungeon Lord and the other players are doing their thing. But even then, the Dungeon Lord can really easily screw over the other players. So I was kind of looking at the rules and stuff like that and going online to BoardGeek.com, which I go to almost every day. And I was looking at the message boards. Like, people were kind of creating their own rule sets for this game, whether it be solo rules or campaign rules. The one that, like, appealed to me is cooperative rules. And like I went through all these docs and downloaded them and like took pieces of what I felt was the best part of each of those rules. And I came up with my own Dungeoneer co-op rules There's an order of play that kind of reflects the actual order of play that the solo campaign is. That the solo campaign, how the solo campaign is actually set up. I created kind of my own version of it. Obviously, there's not every card can be used in the co-op mode because it does require to have a player who's, making conscious decisions against people. So what you have to do is take those cards out. Then the problem is I basically had to divide the peril. I had created 2 decks: the peril deck and the glory deck. The glory deck is obviously the hero deck, whereas the peril deck is supposed to have all the monsters and stuff like that. And you have to make sure that you have all these cards can work in the sense of solitaire play, because not all of them can actually work. So I kind of developed my own version of this game, creating a hero phase, creating rules of attack and stuff like that. And soon enough, it just became a sort of miniature version of Castle Ravenloft, or even a version of Dungeons and Dragons rules, where your characters can actually move together, acquire quests. They have their personal quests that they can do, and then they have their shared quests that they can all do. And to basically win at the game, they have to complete their personal quest and also complete the universal shared quest as well. And when I was doing that too, I decided to make my own characters. I think the problem is that some of the characters in Dungeoneer, they're very underpowered in the beginning. In fact, it's cool because your character can actually increase in level during the game after they complete quests. Unfortunately, the portion where they actually could handle themselves, or where they have more of a chance at least of coming out of the dungeon alive, is the last level. But for whatever reason, when you play the game, you'll never reach that last level. So I decided to buff up the heroes that I created. And now I didn't want to create my own version of these fantasy characters. So what I did is I just created characters I know from other fantasy franchises. So right here, this is Trevor Belmont. I created his own stats and stuff like that. He has his own health. These characters that I made are slightly stronger than the ones that you would find in the normal game. You can play, the normal game if you want, but I feel that they're a little bit underpowered, and they just need a little something extra. This obviously won't say that these characters are way more powerful than the ones that you can find in the game. They just have slightly more useful things that you can take advantage of while playing the game. I feel that sometimes the characters that you play with, the ones that come with the set, is that you're just kind of going in there with a blank character sheet, and everyone has strength of 1 or magic power of 1 or whatever. Whereas this one at least gives you a little bit of a chance of your hero coming out alive without needing to power up to the last level. Here's Sypha right now, and yes, I did base these characters from the Netflix series. I have Alucard. For those people who are a fan of Symphony of the Night, I did create Grant, who's not in the Netflix series right now, but I wanted to be as complete as possible, so I got the art from the old Nintendo booklet. I guess someone actually colored it. I don't know if this is actually the original, how it appeared in the Nintendo booklet, but I believe this is the original Nintendo art or Famicom art. And then I started making the characters from Curse of the Moon just because I'm such a huge fan of that game. Here's Miriam. There's Jebel. I always thought it was Gebel, but I guess it's Jebel. Jebel, yeah.
Are we going to have a GIF?
Yeah. GIF. Then there's Alfred, who has his own powers as well. You can, and then finally Zangetsu, the samurai, who I didn't know this, but I guess Zangetsu actually has a wooden hand.
He does?
Yeah. That's why he only uses one hand when he strikes with his sword. I didn't know that. I had to read about that because I was trying to get the personality of all these characters in. So that was a real fun thing to do. Now I don't have the rules available online yet, and maybe I'll make a video about how to play solitaire version of Dungeoneer, but that would actually require people knowing how to play Dungeoneer originally. I would, if you are guys a fan of this game, I think it works a lot better as a co-op game than a versus game, and that's my opinion. Some people might think that it works way better as a versus game, and that that's fine. I mean, it's a difference of opinion. I feel that the game, in my opinion, doesn't really go anywhere. But with the co-op rules, at least you're working together with other players to complete a goal, which I think is much better than screwing over the guy who's in the dungeon with you. Hey, we're in this dungeon. We're searching for treasure. Okay, well, I don't want to work with you. And like a monster, and like, here's a monster. Fight this monster. I'm like, what the hell, man?
Look, if I wanted to fucking dungeon crawl and screw over the person who's dungeon crawling me, I'd go to work.
Pretty much. That's That's a great analogy. It feels like you're at work, like someone like trying to gun.
Because I already work with people who try to screw me over on a fucking daily basis.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that in a fucking
in a fantasy setting.
In a fantasy setting, yeah.
I want to fight dragons and work with people, like I want that episode of Game of Thrones where they're like the wild bunch going down.
I don't even want to like fight a dragon or anything. I just want to be in a fantasy land where I just booze and whore around.
You could do that. You do that in the real world.
Yeah, but
we're in LA.
But in real world, I got responsibilities and shit.
Right. So
in the fantasy world, I don't.
Yeah. I do have a link below to my DeviantArt where you can actually download these characters. I have also one for Sword Art Online. Because I'm going to be playing this with some groups of people, and like they're fans of Sword Art Online, so I decided to make some characters for them. Plus, I want to be Trevor Belmont. No one's Trevor Belmont except for me. You can cut these. You can print them out on a normal printer. You can cut them with like a paper slicers or with scissors. I laminated mine with the sort of laminating tape that you can buy at Staples. And then you can get one of those card protector sleeves, and you can put a normal card in there, and then the paper over it, and there you go. You have an instant dream card that can be used for the game. Unfortunately, you're going to have to put that card protector sleeve on all the other cards that are exactly like it, but it's called work, and if you want to have fun, you do kind of have to work towards it. So that's all available in my DeviantArt, and like I've already play tested as a solo game, and it's worked out for me for the most part. I've also play tested it as a 2-player game because they actually came out with sort of 2-player sets of Dungeoneer that are sort of pared down versions of the bigger game. I played that just yesterday with my friend Bert, and we enjoyed the hell out of the game, and it kind of like scratches that itch of like playing a role-playing game, doing all the role-playing game things, but not having to create a character or as a dungeon master create this huge campaign that 4 players are going to enjoy. It's very portable because all you need is the cards. You do need maybe counters, but you don't need a whole ton of them. And then you do need 6-sided dice. One 6-sided dice to keep track of your hit points because all your characters can get all heroes can get hit 6 times. And then you need like two 6-sided dice. You should have them different colors, one to represent the monster and one to represent your hero, because you're going to be like rolling the dice and adding it to your stats and adding to the monster stats and comparing ranks. But it's a real fun game. We can play it sometime. Maybe when we go back to what's called Geeky Game and Tease, which is moving soon. Because they're moving. Yeah, they can't afford the rent, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But maybe we can go back there one last time and play the game. But yeah, it's something I just wanted to do because I read this really great book about Gary Gygax. It got me in the fantasy role playing mood, and I wanted to scratch that itch. And that's all I have. I think that's all what we have now. We've hit an hour. What are you doing? Texting? Are you working?
Yeah, I'm working. Yeah. I'm actually looking at Luke Cage plot points.
Plot points.
So I actually would like to actually play this.
Yeah.
Because I feel that's one of the things that is so kind of lacking. I'm sure there is. I mean, you know me. I don't really have too much time to play card games and things like that. I feel there's a lot of co-op games that are lacking in the board/card game setting.
There's a ton out there, but
or sometimes they're kind of brutal to play.
They're unfairly like it's just like when a player can't advance and do stuff and they're always boxed in, it gets frustrating.
I feel like Arkham Horror, we followed the rules to a T. It could be like that, but I think the way you play, I like it better. It's a lot more fun.
Yeah, ignoring some of the rules, like, you know, that I felt was kind of extraneous. And, like, if you're kind of bringing a person into tabletop games, if you overwhelm them with too much rules and too much of this and saying, oh, you can't do that. Oh, you can't do that either. You can't do that either. It gets frustrating for a person who's trying to get into it because, like, it's like, oh, so what can I do? You can't do anything. Like, well, what am I playing this for? Like, I think you ran into that when we first played Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition.
Yeah. With
the game master that we were playing with.
Yeah.
Or the dungeon master we were playing with.
Yeah, I ran into a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Eventually, I killed him and stuffed his body in the couch.
But, like, yeah, in the sense of
in the fantasy setting.
In the fantasy thing, yeah.
I killed the dungeon master.
In this Dungeoneer, it's more like driven to work together kind of thing. You're not just sitting there trying to work against each other.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I would say, like, there's people, when they play their game and they're working against people, man, they're great. It kind of says volumes about their personality.
Yeah.
It's like one of those people who play Detroit Become Human, and they just kill everyone and, like, don't save the child or whatever.
Or Until Dawn, where they just make sure everyone dies.
Yeah. It's like, it's funny to watch them all die. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there's people who love just trolling and just, like, making sure they fuck with people so much.
Right.
Again, if I wanted to do that, I'd just go online. I'll play a video game online.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So before we go here, 4th of July is coming up. I'm not going to really celebrate it because I don't really celebrate. I mean, I don't know celebration in terms of 4th of July.
I don't want to celebrate. Yeah. I don't actually. You know, let's scratch that. I do something with my family, but I tend to kind of, like, really dislike 4th of July.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care for fireworks anymore because I'm from Kansas and we always do fireworks. From my vantage point of where my home was, my childhood home was, there was a fireworks show that would happen every 4th of July. It would happen. I'm not saying it wasn't impressive. It would happen every year, and then I just kept on watching it, and, like, so fireworks to me is kind of is lost. I wouldn't call myself patriotic. I'm not a traitor, but I wouldn't call myself patriotic. I'm not one of those guys who tear up when, you know, fireworks go off on 4th of July, and I have nothing against, you know, people who serve in the armed forces. I have the utmost respect. I just don't like to do anything on 4th of July. To me, it's an excuse to watch, you know, a Twilight Zone marathon. But I am doing something, I guess, not, American. I'm going to, and that sucks that it's like that, but I'm going to AXE, which is Anime Expo. For those people who don't,
everyone knows Japanese animation is more American than apple pie.
It's called manga.
Manga? Sorry, manga.
Japanese.
Oh my god! When
it's called anime. Actually,
when someone told me, he's like, "Oh, it's manga instead of manga," I was just like, "It's called fuck you. Don't ever talk to me again."
Yeah, I don't like it. When someone says manga and someone says it's called manga, and I'm just like, I don't care. I'm like freaking what's his name from Fugitive? I didn't kill my wife. I don't care.
Oh, you're Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that should be responsible to a lot of shit I hear. They're like, so and so, I don't care.
I don't care.
The only thing it shouldn't be a response to is locking kids in cages.
I guess so.
You should definitely fucking care about that.
And you should also care about that Korea beat Germany in the World Cup and let Mexico advance.
Yes. I owe you a lot of drinks for that.
Right.
We're not really big sports fans, but we just like the drama of it all.
I like the World Cup just because it has the entire world, except in this case, not the U.S. because they couldn't qualify.
Really?
Yeah.
God, why does the U.S. suck so much?
Yeah, they don't really care about that game because they're bad at it.
Yeah, the U.S. is really bad at soccer. So Anime Expo. I'm
going to be at Anime Expo. I'm going to be cosplaying. I'll be cosplaying as Trevor Belmont. I'll be cosplaying as Mugen from Samurai Champloo with two of my friends who are going to be the other characters. I'm also going to be cosplaying as Leon, and I'm also going to be cosplaying as Ash from Ash vs. Evil Dead, except I'll be wearing an Ash Ketchum hat, and I don't know anything about Pokemon. So if you see me at Axe, don't approach me.
Approach ChuckingDice and ask him about Pokemon.
I don't want Pokemon. You near me. No, I will not take a picture, and leave me alone.
Man, I saw the Castlevania meetup, and I want to go to that, but I have to work.
Oh yeah. There's a meetup at 3:00 at Site 4, which I don't know where that is. I'm probably going, but that's also sort of the time we blocked to go back to our hotel to kind of get some rest in. Mm-hmm. Also, kind of looked, and then, like, I think they're really young kids who are going to. Like, it was, oh, I'm graduating. I don't know if she's like graduating college or high school at that point, but like
middle school.
Yeah, maybe middle school, maybe elementary school. But I'm just like, man, these kids are young. I'm like, wait a minute, Castlevania's for mature audience only. But yeah, and they're like, oh, we'll be playing the video game. And it's like, you guys weren't even born when that game came out.
You need to go there and show those young whippersnappers a thing or two about Castlevania.
Yeah, I'll pick up like the console or machine and then throw it on the cement.
You're like, there's only one true way to play Castlevania, and that's with this revolver. You just start playing Deer Hunter.
You're welcome.
Or you start playing Russian Roulette.
Russian Roulette.
I always call it Deer Hunter.
Take out a revolver, put one bullet. The bullet is Dracula.
And you got and this is the Medusa head.
Then I hand him the gun and go, Mow! Mow!
God damn it.
I love Deer Hunter. I worked with what's his name? John Savage.
Really?
Yeah. I worked with him on a short called King's Echo. I was gonna say Randy Savage. I worked with Randy Savage. Oh yeah, Clyde, how's it going? Cream of the crop, right here. No, I worked with John Savage, and he was like sort of the. It was a student film, but he was actually starring in it because somehow John Savage does student films time to time. I think he was actually paid for it. Well, everyone else wasn't. He's a real cool guy. I sat with him, and John Savage was actually in an episode of Star Trek Voyager. So when I was like sitting with him, because I had to walk him back to sort of the green area, the green room, and I kind of just said, "Hey, Mr. Savage, I was a huge fan of," and I guess he was gonna think I was gonna say, Deer Hunter. I was like, I was a huge fan of your character, Captain Ransom from Star Trek Voyager, that two-parter where you were the Federation ship that was also stranded in the Delta Quadrant, but you were also fighting those aliens, the Inkari, and I went through the entire plot line. And he was like, just had this grin on his face. He loved the fact that I loved that episode because I actually do. I thought he was a badass captain, did something wrong, but redeemed himself at the end. And I thought that was a really great performance and story. And he says, like,
he was just glad you didn't talk about Deer Hunter.
Right. I mean, he could have been glad about that, but I guess he was kind of happy that I recognized something that he did that was more based on like how he performed as a character. Rather than, Deer Hunter, like the one that everyone always talks about. This is a funny story because, like, he's like, yeah, and it's like, oh, call me John, and like, yeah. He knew me by my name. I saw him at the screening of the thing. He's like, hey, how's it going? Like, still watching Star Trek Voyager? And like, hi, I got canceled a while back ago, but like, I watched that episode on Netflix and whatnot. He's like, oh, it's on Netflix? It's like, yeah, you should watch it. Watch yourself. It's like, oh, I can't do that. And we, had this entire conversation. He also hit on one of my friends. But, yeah, she always talks about it. And I was like, what do you say? He's like, well, he's like, you want to come over and, we can hang out and stuff. I'm like, oh, you could have hung out with John Savage. He's like, well, I don't want to date him or anything. I was like, we could have been best friends with him.
Why didn't you want to date John Savage?
I don't know why she didn't want to date John Savage. I think he's, quite the handsome man. He was a silver fox.
He was actually in Goliath.
Yeah. So when I was like talking about that, and I left, and I went and met up with Cotterman, who is a guest speaker on this podcast, and he told Cotterman. He's like, what? I told John Savage about Star Trek Voyager. He's like, we talked about it for a good 10 minutes and stuff. He loved me, dude. And he's like, really? And he's like, that's so cool. And then so it's funny because before me and Cotterman moved out to California, we saw this movie called Alien Lockdown, which is just this, cheap rental at Blockbuster. Very low budget film. It's about this group of soldiers that get stuck in this scientific underground base, and there's this alien being that they were like doing tests on, and trying to create it as the greatest genetic warrior assassin. And like John Savage was actually in the movie playing this like sort of weird eccentric scientist who's like spouting like apocalyptic messages. It wasn't a very good movie. I mean, his performance is okay, but like it's not a very good movie. I didn't really like that much, and so but Cotterman liked it, and Cotterman went up to him and was like, "Hey, John, you know that's how Cotterman talks. He's like, hey, really liked you in that movie, Alien Lockdown. It was, and then like he kind of looked at him, and was like, I don't really remember that film. He's like, yeah, you were that scientist that created the ultimate weapon. And he kind of like looked at him, laughed, patted him on the shoulder, and then walked away. And he came up to me and talked to me. He was like, I guess he didn't really, he just kind of patted me on the shoulder and just walked away. I'm like,
that was the day Cotterman cried.
Yeah, I'm like, Cotterman, you mentioned this B movie that he did? Like,
yeah,
you remember you talked about Star Trek Voyager? Yeah, millions of people watch Star Trek Voyager. But it was like hilarious that he went up and like said, I loved you in Alien Lockdown.
He's probably just embarrassed about fucking those B movies. They're just like, I don't want to remember those.
I mean, there's a certain group of people where you can do that with. You can do that with Tony Todd. You can do that with Bruce Campbell. You can't do that with John Savage. No, you can't do that with John Savage.
Especially with a guy like Dad who's like fucking been in some big
picture with like Robert De Niro and like, you know, like whatever, the Fredo from Godfather. But yeah, I mean, and you know, more to the fact, he wasn't actually the starring role of that movie either. He was a supporting cast. So he probably wants to be more, you know, recognized of, you know, what he starred in rather than Alien Lockdown. So Alien Lockdown is available at
yeah, so that's all the show we got for today. Remember to follow us on Twitter at IncognitBro and at ChuckingDice. Please share, like, and subscribe.
Yeah.
Always leave comments.
Thanks for joining us again, Vic. You rule. Vic rules, everyone. I hope you have a good 4th of July, Vic.
Yeah, enjoy the fireworks. You know, the only thing I like about 4th of July, I don't like the patriotism. I do like the barbecues.
Oh no, okay, barbecues. I'm in love with that.
I do like the barbecuing and desserts of 4th of July.
I like the cakes that are made like to look like flags.
Yeah,
I'll eat those.
But everything else, the patriotism and the flags and everything in America, I hate it all. Like
I went to this one like barbecue back in Kansas where someone made a speech about like America and whatever. I'm like sitting there, can we have our burgers now? If you like the 4th of July, like you should go to a Korean barbecue. Our church did this every 4th of July. You know, if it fell on the Sunday or even before the Sunday before 4th of July, we would have these barbecues that were just like Korean, you know, grilled meats. Korean food everywhere.
We're going, right?
Yeah. I don't go to church anymore. And I miss those. Like, that was a lot of fun because the food was great. I love the food at it.
You're like, get out of the way. I don't want to talk to anyone. Just give me food.
Yeah. Well, Jesus. I'm like, yeah, whatever, Jesus. It's like
Jesus needs to get in line and wait for his
Jesus can wait for the short ribs.
Yeah.
But I used to love that. That was my favorite thing. Because, like, it was funny because, like, you know, there would be another group next to us and they're, like, grilling like normal burgers, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then you see the elaborate setup of a Korean barbecue,
and you're like, God damn,
oh, you don't have a big pot of rice, kimchi, and like, you know, all these like great japchae, and you know, all these great sides, and on top of that, short rib marinated to perfection.
Just don't put japchae on top of your nachos.
Oh, Jesus Christ, that story. Beckles, if you're listening, that's not a kosher thing to do.
That will always be seared in my mind as my first interaction with Beckles.
Yeah. Should we tell that story so there's like some context, or should we like save it for another time?
We'll save it for another time.
We'll save that story for another time. I'm not sure if we even told it, but we'll save it for another time. Thank you for joining us, and we'll keep it rolling.